Good evening, everybody. This is Cinnamon Noir.
And this is the Ramen Shaman.
Welcome back to Rayman Legends. So last time we went through Toad Story, and this time we're doing Fiesta de los Muertos. Which, interestingly enough, is in Spanish almost exactly the same as the name of the last painting, Living Dead Party. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is literally Party of the Dead, but... And here we go in the first level. What the Duck?
What the Duck?
Yeah, this is a fun level.
I mean,
I'd explain it, but it's going to explain itself. Mm. Oh yeah, this whole level is... Sorry, I should say this whole world is very What the Duck. But this level more than any. So yeah, the magician here, right off the bat, doesn't give us a chance. Turns us into a duck. A duck with Rayman's head, which is a little disturbing, but necessary, because otherwise how would we remember it's still Rayman?
True.
You can play as other characters in this game, so whichever character you pick, it will be that character's head on top of the duck. Thankfully, Murphy comes in. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, Rayman seems surprisingly chill about that fact.
Rayman is chill about everything. If you knew Rayman, you would not be surprised about his chillness.
True.
I'm trying to think of a game where he really does display a lot of emotion. I guess in Rayman 2, there's a fair amount of that. And also a little bit in Rayman 3. But no, this is old-fashioned. This is going back to the personality of Rayman from the original Rayman game, where he was so easygoing, like nothing could perturb him. So you may have noticed the way Murphy helps us in this area is by eating stuff. Specifically, he's eating his way through all this cake. At least I'm pretty sure it's cake. Looks kind of like tres leches. Could be something else.
Yeah, it does
if it is tres
look
leches,
a little bit like some sort of cheese. Or...
Yeah, it's not cheese. If it is tres leches, I envy him, because tres leches is amazing.
Yeah, I for some reason I thought tres leches was kind of cheese, and I don't think it is.
Tres leches is a cake that's made from 3 types of milk. That's hence the name.
Hence the name.
Oh. Yeah, I screwed myself out of that. So, since Murphy goes up and down, he'll only eat when you press Y, and you're supposed to use that selectively in order to get him to eat only the parts you want. So I kill myself there in order to show you. So yeah, you can have him eat only the bottom half here, and then that thing won't go down. Then once you're done, have him eat it anyway, so it's easier to get through.
Rayman is briefly driven to suicide by his failure.
Oh. Yeah, he does that a lot. And it's totally him and not me. It's like when people blame Mario for not jumping far enough. Come on, jump, Mario, jeez. Anyway. Yeah, I did that pretty badly. Luckily, you can jump over this, it just requires a little finesse.
Yeah.
Oh. I was gonna say, I thought I heard a teensy, but it's just the one in the cage over there. It's a little difficult to tell the cries of the ones in cages from the ones that are in the like special optional areas. So when I miss one, that's usually the reason. It's just because they're a little hard to figure out. That was bad. I'm gonna follow him. So yeah, very sedate pace early on in this level. It gets a little complicated in later levels, but here, they're just kind of trying to teach you how to use Murphy here. Which, to be fair, it took me a while to learn, so I was glad for the tutorial style. Murphy does move very fast here, so sometimes it's a little annoying to try to get him properly.
Yeah.
And also there's just the fact that Murphy's kind of seems like he was optimized for 2-player play. Like, so one person helps out by controlling Murphy while the other is playing. When you have only one person, it is a little complicated to try to balance pressing Y to control him with using all the other buttons to control Rayman.
Although that does seem kind of annoying, like, playing as the sidekick.
Oh, but there's so much potential to screw your friends over and do silly things that I think people tend to enjoy playing as Murphy when they have to.
I guess.
It's better in this game than it is in a lot of other games, I recognize. I recognize that it's not the best thing in the world. Anyway, this room is a little complicated. So we have this stuff which I assume is just really spicy salsa going through all this area. And you need to make sure not to get it on you. Because Rayman, very sensitive tongue, as everyone knows. So you have to make Murphy only eat through enough of this so that he can get through, without eating so much that the salsa lava can get through on top.
Oh god.
That was me forgetting which direction to go. I'm always thrown by the fact that they kick you out of the little sub-level when you fail. I keep expecting I'm going to respawn right where it is. So, now we have to do exactly the opposite. we have to make sure all the stuff goes down that hole so it won't be on the other side.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a little clever. They do more with it later. This is not the only use of it. But I do have to say, of all of the level gimmicks in this game, of which there are 5, this is probably the one I like the least. I'm not fond of the Murphy eating stuff mechanic. Not that he's always eating stuff in this world, but it does always involve food. I think when you said Fiesta de los Muertos was Feast in the last episode, the developers probably thought the same way as you. Because they certainly do treat it like it's all about food. In that sense, it's a lot like the 3rd level from Rayman Origins, which was called Gourmand Land, and had a very similar aesthetic. It even had sort of the Mexican theme when you got into the hot area, but it had a hot-cold theme, so the first part felt very different. I really loved that first part of Gourmand Land. It had, like, sherbety drinks and stuff, so it fit with the cold theme. I'm having Murphy eat some more cake here. Yeah, this one, even though the theme is Mexican, the theme is also kind of like cakes, sweet stuff.
I was going to say, that's just a jelly donut.
It could be. It could also be churros.
Oh, true.
Hard to say. Controlling your R's is not the easiest thing in the world. But if they are churros, they have a really bizarre sauce. You're supposed to dip them in hot chocolate. And I've never seen blue hot chocolate. I'm surprised that hasn't been done. It seems like the kind of thing Nestle would have done by now, but... But I haven't. So anyway, I go back to get these lums and to see what's up here, which I didn't get earlier.
I do like the idea of a Mexican-themed food world.
Yeah, that's less common than just the plain old Mexican world.
Or the plain...
But believe me... Sorry, go ahead.
Or the plain old food world.
Yeah. I was gonna say, believe me, they do plenty of plain old Mexican cliches as well. In fact, the boss is one of the most well-worn Mexican cliches of all. Not gonna spoil it, although to some extent that already did, but... No, what really annoys me about this level, and maybe you haven't realized it yet, it's more apparent when you're controlling it, Rayman moves very slowly when he's the duck. His mobility is hindered. You can't jump nearly as high as you'd like to. And it makes this level a little more irritating than it needs to be, I think. Yeah. Make sure not to have Murphy eat this last bit of cake. You can technically catch the thing while it's on the way down, even if you've already gotten him to eat it, but why tempt fate? So these little skeleton guys, who are the primary enemy in this area, and I think, for the most part, the only one, they're kind of weird. A little bit cliche. You know, they have the long mustaches, and they wear cowboy hats. It also occurs to me that I never noticed before the creatures in the background. Do you see them?
Oh, yeah.
Who have the ginormous 10-gallon hats? I'm trying to make out what those things are, and I cannot tell. There's always been some very interesting background art in Rayman. Some very curious details. Speaking of details, I'm not at all fond of the fact that you bounce on the brains of these things.
Ooh, yeah.
A little gross to me.
Reminds me of Psychonauts, actually.
Yeah, this world does have some similarities with Psychonauts. You're thinking specifically of Black Velvetopia, right?
Well, and the brains made me think of Psychonauts.
Oh, yeah, I guess. That's Psychonauts all over. Oh, and here's one of those bad guys torturing a teensy. Gotta be careful here, have him just get the middle. Again, it's not the end of the world if you miss that one, because you can't jump over them. I would say this mechanic's a little more forgiving than the ones from earlier levels.
Yeah,
a lot of those, if you did it wrong... Oh,
that nearly killed you.
That's true. I got cocky.
Oof.
You can kind of tell where some of the secret levels are in this area, because the foreground elements will be, how to put it, really obtrusive, which they're normally not. And that's a clue to you that it's faking you out, that it's like a stage set. So here's an interesting fact. Murphy can eat this cake even when it is covered in spikes.
Yeah.
I would not want to be his dentist after this game is done, but apparently he's just fine with it.
Decorative?
Could be. Yeah, maybe they're made out of spun sugar or something. I was a bit dumb.
Yep.
I forgot that this stuff doesn't just disappear when it falls.
Yeah.
It will stick around on any level surface. It is interesting, though, that, you know, in most platforming games, including Rayman Legends for the most part, things like this are infinite. But in a few areas of this game, the lava salsa will actually be finite, so the idea is to drain it rather than to find a way to block it off.
Ah.
No, like, oh, that was stupid. Anyway, you could see in that first one there, it was pouring out of a pipe, so it was permanent. This, however, is finite, and the goal is just to get rid of it.
Ah.
Does involve some patience, a little annoying.
Yeah.
I guess technically I could make my way through here. Yeah, I'm gonna try it now. Just touching a little bit of the lava salsa won't kill you. But you gotta be careful. Too much of it, you know. Rayman's little duck dance just doesn't do it for me. He has a much nicer dance when he's a real boy. Which that's our goal, to turn Rayman back into a real boy.
What about the chicken dance?
He can't do it.
True.
It's racially, he's incapable of it. Yeah, so this area, be a little bit careful.
A little bit.
To be honest, it's easier than some of the earlier stuff. Here, on the other hand, is where it gets a little bit more difficult. So, just like, kind of like what we were seeing in the bonus area, here we are making our way down through these spiked cakes.
Very carefully.
Yeah, this is tighter than a lot of the stuff in the Toad one was. Oh, that was dumb.
Yep.
And I turned into a duck balloon. You know, it's just funny, it occurred to me that in this game you become a duck who can turn into a balloon, because the character's always, you know, balloon eyes. But in another Dia de los Muertos inspired game, Grim Fandango, you run into a character who makes balloon animals, and I think you can ask him to make a duck.
Huh.
And his response is basically, kiss my ass. He apparently hates his job. He doesn't like making balloon animals. So all you can get him to give you is like a straight one. He calls it a sword, but it's just like a straight balloon. You know when they make the swords at county fairs and stuff, they're supposed to have a handle and all that fancy stuff? This guy just gives you a plain old balloon. So, here's one of the weirder food-themed areas. That I'm pretty sure is butter.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Could be cheese, but...
It made me think a little bit of, like, lemon bars, but...
Oh, yeah, but that's definitely not what it is. You can see, like, oil dripping off of it.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure Rayman's just surfing around on big pats of butter. Which is weird to me, because butter's not that big in Mexican cuisine, but...
No.
It's big in Tex-Mex cuisine, but that's because it's actually American.
True.
And we all know how much we Americans love our butter. So there's a boring achievement that's basically just, you got a certain number of teensies.
Oh, God.
I think there's like 6 of them. My least favorite kind of achievement, because it's an achievement that just tells you what you'd be doing anyway. Like, achievement, you made it 20% of the way through the game. Some of those showed up while I was playing Portal, and I was like, why are you interrupting my game to tell me this? I know I've made it a certain amount of way through the game. The game's divided into chapters. Anyway, now the food theme is heating up here. Have you noticed in the background there's a bunch of forks and other like plateware flying through the sky, like Ride of the Valkyries?
Oh, yeah.
Very strange. I'm actually just noticing that. I didn't notice it before. So yeah, one fun thing in this level is you can ride through a lot of fruits, including watermelons. And they open up to show you little like mini dungeon areas. Kind of reminds me of Amanita Designs games, where they'll sometimes show you entering a little shadowy area. Like, have you ever played Samorost or Botanicular or anything like that?
Part of them.
Oh, well. So you kind of know what I'm talking about. So yeah, this level's a little bit faster paced, which I appreciate. Since you're not the duck, Rayman can get around a lot more easily.
Yeah.
You may also have noticed that Big Rayman slides down those chains, but Little Rayman can walk on top of them.
Interesting.
So they're less of an impediment to Little Rayman. And in keeping with the faster pace of this level, this is a more action-focused bonus level.
Probably because of Little Rayman would have a higher surface to mass.
Yeah, that's the idea. In the first game, Little Rayman would walk on top of little cocktail umbrellas in the cold world.
Oh, God.
Funnily enough, Rayman Origins, you also introduced the mini Rayman thing in this area. But of course, in that game you got power-ups, whereas this is treated less like a power-up and more just like an aspect of the level. In Rayman Origins, if Rayman went through any, like, tapering area, it would instantly turn him into Little Rayman. These trumpets are just a quick way of doing the same thing. Oh yeah, and here we go through a disgusting worm-eaten apple. That's cool. So this watermelon, you gotta be careful here because it's got those knives sticking through it, and the underside, which glints to warn you, will kill you.
Interesting.
So you gotta be careful with that. I mess up several times near by getting hit by it. Took me a while to figure out that they actually were damaging. Though I like the, how to put it, the environmental messaging, in that you do see a glint run along them, so the game is trying to draw your attention to them. I also like these guys, these little worms that live in the apples and come out to give you a platform. This one looks a lot nicer, even though it is still worm-eaten. They're both the same on the inside, but one looks prettier on the outside. Oh, return to my favorite song. This one just comes out of nowhere, which I think is kind of cool. You know, this is actually a track in the soundtrack, and this part of it only comes in like a couple minutes in. But here they just start that right off the bat. They know what's the good part of this song. Now, overall, Christophe Herral, that's the soundtrack designer, he did an amazing job with this game. I think, in some ways, it is a better soundtrack than the Rayman Origins one. But all good things must come to an end. So yeah, here's one of the weird types of secret area in this game. You just play soccer to get it. And obviously, since I'm so good, I get it in a single hit. Don't even need to pay attention.
Clearly.
Anyway, back to this falling, I'm not even sure what that's supposed to be in the background. It's got those holes in it. Maybe it's something like a cheese grater? But
good point.
I do some cooking, but not enough to know what kind of cooking utensil this is. If it even is a cooking utensil, I mean, it's a little weird. Anyway, back to Mini Rayman, because we need to go inside this apple. Where is a teensy being kept hidden?
Yeah.
And more butter.
And now you've got, like, sausages and apples and stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's a party. Yeah, be very careful. Don't run into that little knife.
Oop. Yeah.
This one's even harder, so...
Oof.
Yeah, see? There's me forgetting not to hit those knives. So, this watermelon is rotating. Which, a little bit curious. And it also means the knives will slide in and out.
Oh, because of, like, gravity.
So which of them are in or out depends on what part of the thing you hit it at. It might seem a little weird I'm talking about it, we haven't seen it yet again, but it'll come up very quickly here.
Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, there's a teensy in there, so you can't just ignore it. Unless you're a heartless speedrunner. So yeah, we need to wait for it to go all the way down so these things will come back in. At which point the ones on top will slide in again. Yeah, pretty complicated.
That is.
I like it. You know, it's... I always like it when games that seem very outlandish do something realistic that you wouldn't expect, and the result is a bigger challenge. Rayman Origins was actually very good at that, and Rayman Legends carries on the tradition.
No, realism elements when they deliberately further game design.
Yeah.
Instead of, like...
Yeah, I'm not a fan of realism for realism's sake. I don't think there's much point in that.
Red Dead making your horse's... what is it? Your horse's testicles shrink in real time.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. Like, that would be the point when I would think, if I were a fan of these games, I would be wondering, are the creators of this game, like, becoming weird auteurs?
No, what I would be wondering is, like, how the developer of that game managed to face each new day.
Ouch. It does make me wonder, how do you justify a decision like that? Like, spending development time on that. How do you justify that to your boss? Especially when you work for a big AAA company.
You probably don't. Like, you just lump it in the budget and hope he doesn't ask.
Then again, Rockstar belongs to 2K Games, which of the three giant publishing game companies is probably the least, corporate-ish.
I guess, although...
I was looking them up the other day.
There was some rather infamous stuff about them overworking developers.
Well, that's true of every game company, isn't it?
Well, like, specifically one of the lead designers, like, bragged about how their developers were working 100-hour weeks.
Wow. Brag to who? Who even cares?
To, like, a person in games media.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no.
They really should have known that games media wasn't going to have their back on that. Games media is always interested in the side of the developers, you know? The little guys.
Generally. Well.
Well, if there's anything we've learned over the past decade, it's that a lot of game companies don't understand PR at all.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, I was going to say, even small companies have tons of, like, pressure on the workers. You know, Telltale had, what, like 150 employees? And they were slave drivers.
Oh god, Telltale was infamous.
You can never tell, really.
One of the things that came out with them is, the fact that the Telltale Games model was deliberate.
Right.
Like, even after people were joking about, like, how every game followed the same formula.
Yeah, and had the same engine. Anyway, this kind of bonus area will be familiar to people who played Rayman Origins, or at least who played it very well, because this is the same song that is used in the final bonus area of that game. Although the level, of course, is much easier. And it's the same design as that. The Rayman Origins ended with you going to the Land of the Livid Dead, which is where all the bad guys came from.
Oh.
And you had to fight them in a world which, oddly enough, was full of, like, old grannies. Like, those were the main bad guys. They would hit you with their purses. And in this game, the last area, Living Dead Party, has the exact same aesthetic. Where you have the, you know, death themes and all that stuff, and the old grannies.
Rayman has a thing with Lands of the Dead, which is kind of
Yeah,
weird.
it does. Well, I don't know. I think it's pretty European, you know?
True.
Not that Japanese people and that kind of thing don't have that concept. I don't know. I don't know why Ubisoft does that in particular. It's not in Michelangelo's other games. You don't see that concept in Beyond Good and Evil, for instance. I think it's just that Rayman is fantastical, you know, and one of the fantastical worlds you would visit would be the Underworld.
Yeah.
In that sense, you know, that has a history going back to the Odyssey. Technically the Iliad, if I'm right. Anyway, so that bonus area is pretty easy. You may have noticed I think I only died once. What I like about this bonus world in particular is it's just running. There's no gimmick with Murphy or anything like that. And since you're going left to right instead of up and down like the last ones were, I also find that a little easier to deal with. So, here we've rescued another princess, Estelia, which I've never heard of as an actual Spanish girl's name, but whatever. And I'm rushing ahead a little bit to see other levels in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Determining where I was supposed to cut things off. I think I managed to get a decent length for these videos. They're all roughly the same length. So we're going to do one more level to round it out. And this is the chase level. Oh, wait, sorry, no, I'm wrong. This is the other duck level. Duck of my life. Anyway. I really don't like these levels. But yeah. So, one interesting thing that's reintroduced here that was in Gourmandland is the baby dragon chefs. Who were in that level. They're little and red, and they wear chef's hats. And they will breathe fire at you. Now, Gourmandland, I will say, had kind of a nicer aesthetic. It was more like you were in a kitchen. So there were pots hanging everywhere. There were also brighter colors. And it was more red. I'm saying all this to distract from what Murphy's doing here, which is spreading guacamole.
That's weird.
I don't know if this counts as like the Spanish culture equivalent of blackface, but it kind of seems like it to me. I do not like the guac. I'm not just saying that as game mechanic. In real life, I am not a fan of guacamole.
Oh, I like.
Which is a shame. The entire rest of my family does, so you're in good company. It's funny. I'm not a big fan of dips in general. So like guacamole and hummus, both of which are beloved by the entire rest of my family, all of them, but not me. Anyway, you see there that guy steaming himself up, you know, whistling like a tea kettle. And when he's done with that, he'll breathe fire on you. Anyway, here we see another annoying thing about Murphy, which is, again, when you've gone past the point when he wants to do the thing, you can't really get him to do it.
Yeah.
You need to be behind each of these guac platforms, or potential guac platforms, to get him to do it. And that means if you mess up once, you're likely to not be able to go backwards. Which is annoying. I don't usually have that problem in Rayman, so it's just another reason not to like the Murphy levels. Or at least not this particular one. It does seem like they were going a little overboard in the whimsy at this point. I mean, like, literally having a side character who will, like, puke guacamole out
That is a little
to block
weird,
platforms. Yeah. Like, it almost feels like the hipster version of gimmicky game design. Like, they looked at Nintendo and said, how mainstream. We're gonna have a guacamole spitting character. I mean, it raises so many questions. Like, where did he find all this guacamole to eat? How does he keep it in his system? Why guacamole? I mean, surely there was something more sturdy to use as platforms. The other weird thing is you've noticed that in order to guide you into putting them there, there's already like little smears of guacamole on the wall. So where did that come from? So many disturbing things. I spend way too much time thinking about how I'm going to get to this through the firewall, without considering that I could rise up from underneath it. I felt pretty dumb after that, I can tell you. But, you know, what can I say? I have a duck brain. So yeah, now I finally figured out. Just rise up a little bit from there and take care of it. Those fireballs are really too closely packed for you to go in between them. What tricked me a little bit is that in other parts of Rayman, there was some expectation that you could go past things like that. Particularly later in Rayman Origins, where, you know, you're really talented at that point. It's expected you'll be able to get through it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, and here I mess up again. I think the same flame jet got me twice in a row.
Yep.
But anyway. So yeah, this one's all about timing. So wait until it spits out and then fall as fast as you can.
Ouch.
And fall through the middle so that you'll go in between those two. And of course, make sure you block the salsa with the guacamole. Which of course mixes them together. My sister will mix guacamole with salsa, but to me that's kind of gross. She also, of course, mixes mayonnaise with ketchup. Which is apparently a big thing.
Ew.
Have you noticed that in stores they actually will now sell so-called mayo chup?
I've
Like Heinz
noticed
sells that now.
I
So-
do not approve.
She's not alone. I thought my sister was the only one who did that, but no, apparently this is extremely common.
Yes.
What may have made people think of it is the fact that we eat ketchup on french fries, you know. I mean, I don't, because I'm an SD, but a lot of people do. And people in Europe... I am. Shut up. Because people in Europe eat mayonnaise on their french fries, so maybe that's what made people think of it, is, you know, you have ketchup on the one hand and mayonnaise on the other.
SD French for hipsters. Oh god.
Anyway. SD is not a French word.
No, I know it isn't. I'm just giving you shit.
French for hipster. That reminds me of like the the Foster's commercials where they said it was Australian for beer. I'd like to see a commercial that says blank. It's French for hipster. Anyway, this is actually a very easy sub-room. I shouldn't have had much trouble with it, but for some reason I did. You only have to use Murphy once, and you can do it before you even start moving. So, I mean, really, one of the easier sub-rooms in the whole game. I think I've mentioned this. One of the weird things about this game is that some of the easier rooms are later in the game. Which is a little strange. I would think they'd balance them a little better. Especially since they can know exactly when you're going to get to each of these. Oh, that's a fun little trick. You have to actually use the platforms not to support yourself, but to bounce the fireballs so they'll destroy the thing for you.
Yeah, it was...
It doesn't reconcile...
I kind of saw where that was going, but...
It doesn't reconcile me to the guac mechanic, but I will say it is kind of cool. This does get more creative later in the level.
Oh, that's guacamole, or...
You haven't noticed this is guacamole the whole time?
That you're, like, making platforms out of?
I can't believe you didn't notice this was guacamole the whole time. I was talking about guacamole
I know. Ew.
Yeah, this is all... Yeah, he's spitting out guacamole. At least I hope he's spitting it.
I mean,
I don't even want to think about it if it's something else.
That's still nasty.
It's not even the good guacamole with like the tomatoes and stuff in it. It's gross, like fluorescent green guacamole.
Yeah, no,
like industrial.
That does not look like guacamole.
It's the guacamole equivalent of that crappy nacho cheese you get in like bowling alleys.
It's like partially translucent too.
I know. It's so unhealthy. It's like mountain. It's like solidified Mountain Dew is what it's really like.
What kind of guac is... No.
What's wrong with your guac? Anyway, on that note, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, everybody.